Meg, Jo, Beth, and Amy March, the four sisters from the classic novel Little Women, written by Louisa May Alcott. These ladies are more than 150 years old, yet they remain in the world's consciousness, and their stories continue to be told. It's an autobiographical fiction whose characters are based on the author's very own sisters, with Jo being a reflection of the author herself. The book is so relevant that it has spawned many films, TV adaptations, has its own museum. It's been on Broadway, it's been an opera, it even has its own series of dolls, aside from all of the spin-off stories and books that have grown from the same characters. But really, aside from the modern feminist themes that we find so relevant from the book, it's the relationship of these sisters that people hold close to heart. They're young women who are flawed and passionate, and their dreams, desires, and most importantly, their relationship with each other pull them through a tough life that they try to live as beautifully as they can. They embody the complicated and special thing that is sisterhood, and they're so relatable because they're not portrayed as perfect and they don't get everything they want, just like in real life. In fact, for the most part, these beautiful March sisters, like you and I, are just okay. And that's okay. Hey everyone, welcome back. This is You're Just Okay and That's Okay. And this is the podcast that celebrates the everyday, the ordinary, the in-betweens. My name is Chris Flojo and I am your humble host. And I thank you so much for joining me for yet another episode. We're going to get a little personal today because you're going to be meeting my younger sister, Nikki. You know, she's a lot like me, but also she's very, very unlike me. She's smart as a whip and witty as they come. And she has been both a joy to me and also the bane of my existence. My relationship with her has evolved so many times throughout our lives. And today, for this episode, I asked her a few questions about our relationship. Things that I always wanted to know but never really got around to asking. And I felt, what a great opportunity to go ahead and explore that. Also on our roster of guests today are Danah and Stacy Guttierez, the twins that pioneered the body positivity movement here in the Philippines. We're going to find out if there's any truth to the twin connection and how they grew into their own skin despite being identical. I'm going to let you guys have a very quick break, gather your thoughts, sit back and relax. And when we come back, we're going to explore sisterhood.
My face. So hi, I'm Nikki Isaac. I am your sister. And interesting thing about my face is it's beautiful. I don't know what to say.
I mean, I agree.
Hey, thanks. Thank you so much.
You're my sister. I have to agree. We share the same
that's
genes.
True.
My sister is 3.5 years younger than me, to the day. For most of our lives, we were pretty close, save for a few years here and there. She's currently residing in New York with her husband, Tom. They got married in America, and we joined them through live stream. I was a little mad I didn't get to wear a dress and give an emotional, maybe a little drunken matron of honor speech, but that was overtaken by the joy we felt in her finding someone that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with. We're both very full of stories, but strangely enough, are not great at communicating our feelings. It's something we're both working on, and this conversation I had with her was probably one of the more honest conversations we've ever had. Well, I'm going to ask you a question, like the hardest question, I think. We'll just start it off with that so that everything else will be easy.
Allah, okay, go.
So what's it like being my sister?
Oh, interesting question. I like this.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay, so there's a lot of sides to this. Because we went to the same school, so I had the same course, the same track. With like going through life, I was Chris's sister. So that
Right.
was interesting, like they're two sides to it. Like I was Chris's sister, which first of all made me super popular in middle school. I had high school friends. And then in high school, uh, baliktad naman. Sabi nila, mas mabait daw ako sa'yo, Ate Chris.
What? Who
Yeah,
said
mabait
that?
ka.
Well, okay, fine. I did get called to detention a lot more often than she did, and I have no defense whatsoever.
So being your sister, it was like a good thing and a bad thing. I don't say
Mm,
necessarily bad thing, but it gets like when I because I went through so much of what you went through. I mean, even up until I was working in prod, like I was working with people who were essentially your friends.
right.
So they became my friends too eventually. But there was always that, oh, you're Chris's sister. So which was great because I met so many amazing people through you. But then it also became difficult after a while because it's always hard when you're being compared to someone, diba? So parang that was always the, yeah, I'm Chris's sister. And then eventually my goal was parang, okay, you gotta know me as someone else. Like you gotta
Right,
know me as
right,
me too.
right.
So that became like a goal for me na parang I gotta be my own person then.
Would you say that that is that desire to be your own person? Do you think that that became the motivation for some decisions that you made in life, or would
Oh
you say?
yeah, for sure. It starts out for me also, but then eventually also like I also don't want to super get into your stuff then. Alam mo yun, like I
Mm-hmm,
want you
mm-hmm.
to have your own stuff then. When you're compared or when you're paired up with someone all the time, you have to explore your own stuff. Parang it became my motivation to also look for other stuff that's my own stuff.
Right. And you feel like you've gotten to that point where that's no longer like you're so comfortable with knowing what you like that it doesn't matter whether it's an Atticus thing or a Kiki thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. Kiki. It also helped that I started working in industries that you didn't necessarily go into, or
Mm,
I had, diba, like for the longest time my career was really all I had. My work took me in a different direction from what you did. So parang I got enough room for myself that
right.
I kind of just chilled out with the whole like I'm my own person, chorba. Na
Right,
parang
right.
diba? Na parang you like what you like. It really, if you and your sister like the same thing, then so what? You gotta grow out of it sometimes. So
I think I distinctly remember y- the moment where I felt you detach because I felt like
mm.
you were trying to do or see what was your thing that was not in any way connected by an influence that by my influence or your family's influence. I was wondering if that was a conscious decision.
Oh yeah, for
Right.
sure. I mean, especially in college, because parang you get to that age where you're 19, you're 20, and then I'm looking around and I feel like I'm suddenly living my sister's life. I mean, I guess the detaching wasn't necessarily on purpose, but it was a product of what I was trying to do. And if there's a time for you to be all self discovery and stuff like that, it's your early
This
20s.
is
So
true.
I felt like I had to be all about me for a few
Yes,
years
yes, yes.
because yeah, like I was just really trying to figure stuff out, and there was no way that I could do that if I was just listening to everyone else.
Do you think everybody who's a younger sibling goes through this, or is it because you are who you are?
That's a good question. Maybe both. I think with the way our parents raised us, kasi, diba, they were very careful to never play favorites.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and that was great because we never had sibling rivalry or anything like that. And when I hear stories about people who are like super just fighting with their siblings all the time, parang, oh, that sounds exhausting. So I'm happy that we weren't raised like that. But then also you get to that point na parang you have to grow up, diba? And then a younger sibling, more. Parang it'll happen to anyone if you're kind of raised that way, I think.
Mm.
But then if you're a younger sibling, it's a little bit more. Like what you can and cannot do more often than not is in relation to your siblings. I've seen it with a lot of younger siblings though. Like
Really,
I'm
really.
not gonna claim to, yeah, I'm not gonna claim to say it's for everyone, but a lot of younger siblings definitely feel that way.
What's it like being the youngest in the family, did you feel babied, or did you find freedom earlier? Did you find
Oh,
independence? I mean, not freedom,
I
independence
was
earlier.
so free. I was so independent.
Did you wish you had
Hello.
more boundaries?
No, I honestly think it was good for me because it made me very strong-willed. Of course, when you're younger, I when you're given a big responsibility, like no when I was in high school and dad was in Cebu and you were in Katip, I was alone for majority of that school year. Like
Right,
mom would fly in and out of Manila, and like at that point naman kasi they had also disciplined us enough that we knew what we should and shouldn't be doing. Like even when the parents were in Cebu, I would ask for permission to go out.
right,
Ganun
right,
ako ka, ganun ako ka obedient. So I was given a lot of freedom very early on, which was terrifying at the time. And, maybe it forced me to grow up a little bit earlier. But then now I am happy for that because it's not like our parents were ever lacking for love. It's
right.
just that, they were both working and there's just a lot of stuff happening. And it kind of just happens when you're younger, you think you've been forgotten. I think that's what happens when you're a teenager, though. Like I'm talking about it now at like 31, and I was like, oh, super happy I was that independent because like look at me now, diba? Para
Right.
y'all can't keep me down. But but when you're younger, you kind of like parang nakalimutan ka, and you kind of just have to fend for yourself. I mean, obviously not with like food and
Right,
shelter, but like
right.
you gotta find your own way. I'm not gonna lie, there was some resentment when I was
Mm,
younger.
mm.
Yung mga tipong pagpapagalitan ako, parang, ngayon papagalitan mo ako. Ganon. Diba? Hindi nyo ako pinapansin dati. Ngayon, pinapagalitan mo ako. Pero, yeah, I mean, now, I'm like, that was pretty good. I mean, I could, by the time I got into college, I felt like I could handle it
Right.
better than if I wasn't made to be that responsible that early on.
How as an older sister, no one really says this. Like it's not a hard and fast rule, but there is in the back of your head. You want to be somebody your younger sibling can look up to. To be able to maintain that, I think that hindered us in a way where I would not be open with you about certain things because I didn't want you to see the parts where I wasn't doing so well, or I wasn't so good at this, or I made a mistake in this part, or like if I did something that I felt I didn't want you to do or make the mistake of, instead of be like, hey, this is what happened to me. I hope you don't make the same mistake. I would just be like, maybe if I don't show her, she'll still look at me, ate,
Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
she can admire, somebody she can look up to. And that was a weird pressure that I put on myself because nobody naman told me to do that. But
Oh, I was gonna
but
say, like, did anyone make you feel pressured?
yeah, for a few years there, the years where I was making those mistakes, that hindered our closeness because I was closing myself off and I was like, oh, I don't want to tell her. You probably felt that gap, that distance.
Yeah, yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. Like, I think I know exactly what specific time frame you're talking about,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like, diba? But honestly, I never knew that you put that much pressure on yourself. I mean, I love you for that, but at least now you know that it's not necessary, diba? Na parang for me nga, I felt myself quite the opposite, feeling closer to you when I could hear about the mistakes you do, and I'm thinking, okay, we're not that different. Okay, that's the funny part. I was friends with your friends, so I knew what you were getting into. And whenever I'd hear about it, I'd be like, "Okay, my sister's fun. She just doesn't want to show it to me."
Oh
I mean, I think
no.
I saw it, naman. At that point, we just kind of had to find our way into an adult friendship. That was my frustration when you before would try to parent me. That was my frustration because in my mind, bakit ikaw naman you were allowed to make mistakes? Why can't I make mistakes?
Right.
'Di ba? So parang yun yung frustration with I know you're trying to help me, but at the same time I should be able to do what you did.
Was there something that stands out, like something that happened that really was like, oh, I wish you weren't my sister.
No naman. No, not naman to that level na parang I wish you weren't my sister. More of I wish you were different. Sometimes we're not the best at talking about things. And that frustrated me because I was learning about talking about things with my friends or the people I was meeting in school. So my frustration started happening with how come I can talk to these people like this and not my sister? So
Right.
parang that
Mm.
was basically my frustration then. So it never got to the point naman where I hated you and I didn't want you to be my sister. It was more of, I don't hate you. I just want you to be completely different.
I just want you to be someone else. Okay. It's hard to like, it was hard. I think it was hard for me to just stop and be like, okay, she's a grown up now. She's your own person. I don't even know
Yeah.
when I did. I don't even I don't know.
I do.
You
I
did
do. I
when
remember the
when I
exact
let you
moment you
go?
decided to let go. Yeah.
What?
I
When?
remember. We were still both living in Katipunan, but I started my job already and you were working. And I was about to walk out the door. And this was my very first job. So this was what, like a month after graduating. I was about to walk out the door. I said, I'm going out tonight after work. And you go, okay, don't be home to. Okay, bye. I remember
Ah.
that exact moment at the Chris because I was so proud of you. I was like, oh, she almost gave me a curfew, then remembered that she's not my mother and that I'm a working professional now. When you got married, that was also for me na para, oh, my sister is starting this whole new thing in her whole new journey in her life and I want to be a part of that. So, nag-effort na rin ako. Mas nag-effort na ako nun. Uh,
I guess it's all just chapters, huh? It's just all everything just has to happen and then at some point.
yeah. I believe that. That's kind of how I live my life, and it's also the only way that when hardships happen to me, I don't uh, crumble. I
Mm.
always see my life as chapters. When I started forming this chapters or seasons in kind of mantra in my head, that's also when I started feeling more like, oh, my family has been the number one constant through everything that's gone on in my life. And I don't know if this is something that everyone eventually realizes when they get older, but that's when you realize now your family really they will be there for you no matter how many times you mess up. At least our family. Like we are not perfect. There's no perfect families, but I know that once I need any single one of you, you would do absolutely whatever you could.
Every sister relationship is complicated and unique, and it probably gets even more so when you're identical twins, as you struggle for your own identity while being so closely knit with another human being whose DNA is literally identical to yours. At first, I couldn't tell Danah and Stacy's voices apart. However, just a few minutes into the conversation, it became a lot easier because they really are quite distinct from each other, despite looking and sounding exactly the same.
Hi, I'm Stacy, and I work as a media relations manager for a digital company. And I have a cat. His name is Alfie. And yeah, grabe, parang I really need a hobby. I really need a hobby while we're on quarantine. And wala eh. Even on weekends, I work. I just work.
Oh, wow.
Yun ang intro niya, ang bongga.
Ayoko na. Monday pala.
Her intro is I'm Stacy and I've had enough.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's perfect.
I'm Danah. I am half of the twin sisters that Chris is interviewing right now, and I work as a PR manager for Human Nature. It's the biggest social enterprise that produces genuinely natural products here in the Philippines. And we also do a podcast together. So it's called Raw and Real. We talk about biblical womanhood, our faith, culture, society, and just relationships in general. And of course, our karupukans in the past so that other girls can also learn from them. So that's
Amazing, raw and real. I've been looking for a new podcast to listen to because I've been listening to too many murdery podcasts. So okay.
Yun, we decided na, let's just record our conversations, keep it raw, keep it real for our listeners. And also parang we are in a season in our lives where we're both evolving. And we want to talk about that. Parang we just really wanted an honest podcast about the struggles of women when it comes to relationships, even sex and porn and all of that. And yun lang, parang how to view it from a very healthy lens through our Christian worldview.
Let's talk more about the two of you and how this relationship got here. And I'm going to ask you a question that I'm sure you have all heard 1 trillion times. But is there any truth to the twin connection? And if there is any truth to that, how long have you guys felt it?
Ooh.
I like this. This is so fun to answer.
I think definitely yes, there's this twin connection, but mostly, okay, when we were younger, meron talagang weird thing na parang when she feels nervous, or Dana feels nervous tas we're not together. Parang I'd also feel anxious. Tas I'd message her na parang, hey, kinakabahan ka ba? Kasi kinakabahan ako ngayon for no reason. And she's gonna be like, oh yeah, I have a presentation for school or something. So may ganon. That would happen when we were younger. But now, parang I think it's just we've been living together for the longest time and gets na natin yung takbo ng utak ng isa't isa. So parang when someone, as in just one look gets na namin na, okay, I know what you mean, or I know what you're thinking. Yeah.
Just said it.
Yeah.
This is Dana. I think inevitable siya because you were created at the same time. You were in the womb, hanging out, your womb mates, and siguro iba rin kasi single mom yung mommy namin, and she really made us really value the sisterhood we have because alam mo yung statement na kayo na nga lang yung magkapatid. Yan. It's just a totally different dynamic when we are compared to the dynamics of regular siblings like sisters. Parang for a time people were seeing us as a unit na for a time we also struggled with our own individuality and our own identity, like where does Dana start and where does Stacy end.
Have you guys always gotten along, or was there a point in time where you just couldn't stand each other anymore?
Yeah, I think mostly yes. Feeling ko it's just really our low EQ during those seasons na we can't stand each other. Or parang we lack the boundaries needed for a healthy relationship. When it comes to twins, it's really the codependency. Because people all around you will keep lumping you as a couple, as a pair, as a twosome. So
Right.
parang nabibit-bit mo rin yun in your day-to-day, even in your big decisions, you always have to consider your twin na parang until when will it end?
Does anybody feel? I'm curious if it's possible for somebody to feel like an older sibling, or how does that work? Does anybody feel like someone's more responsible for the other, or is there like a power struggle there or something?
It really depends. It depends. Parang
Depends on the aspect.
meron kaming strengths and
Ah.
weaknesses. Siguro for Stacy, she's mas responsible sa household stuff.
Okay.
Like she's great at managing, organizing, budgeting, planning, meals. As in talagang she's got that nailed down. Ako
And
naman
you?
siguro my strength would be social.
Yeah.
Yeah, so mga social, relational, yan. Diyan ako papasok. Parang
Siya yung magpe-prepare ng party, ikaw yung mag-entertain ng guests. Parang ganon.
Exactly. Tapos pag nagpa-party sila, nakaupo lang ako sa isang sulok. Ay, grabe ka naman. Nag-refill ng mga inumin. Grabe ka naman. Nagre-refill ng mga inumin. Sobra ka.
Paano kayo mag-away, guys? Paano yan?
Ngayon? Noon or ngayon?
Okay, sige, compare natin. Paano kayo mag-away dati? Paano kayo mag-away ngayon?
Oh my God. Grabe. As in, sigawan.
Oh, wow.
Batuhan ng gamit. Yan, naalala ko, nagwala si Dana, nagbato ng mga damit. Or nagbasag. Oo, sa sink. Or talagang emotional, hyper-emotional.
Oh, sigawan.
Sigaw, iyak, maglalak sa banyo, tapos hagulgol, ganyan.
Yeah.
Ganon.
Wait,
Noon,
pero love ko yung nagbasag pero sa sink para safe pa rin.
yeah, safe tayo. Safe. So, naghuhugas ako ng pinggan, doon ko siya nabasag para di ako magpupulot ng kalat, number one. And number two, nandun lang siya sa confines ng sink para safe pa rin tayo.
I love it. At least responsible anger. Sorry.
Ish. Maybe.
Ish.
Now it's so different because we really talk it out. And we even pray before we talk. Just so we don't, we're mindful of our words, and parang it's kind of an exercise where we also process the emotions of each other. Na,
Right.
okay, this really pissed me off because I feel na ganito ganyan ganyan, and then the other would say, okay, but when I did this, it was not the intention to make you feel that way. Are you jumping to conclusions and projecting? Alam mo yun, so it becomes this dialogue in once we've parang taken a deep breath and like, okay, ayoko na, pag-usapan na natin to. Ayoko nang mapikon because I don't want this ruining our day together,
Right.
It's
That's so
different.
mature.
Ay nako, girl, to even get here. It took us a long time to get here.
Oh. Was there somebody who kind of took the lead in that area na parang, all right, we gotta start. Tama na tong pagkarupok na to.
Definitely. Siyempre si Stacy yun. Yeah, I was geeking out on kasi I started meeting up with a coach, parang Christian woman who was just really helping me out figure out my stuff.
Cognitive.
Yeah, and then she taught me about cognitive dissonance, and that's where it all started. Na parang ang dami-dami kong cognitive dissonance. It's really when your mind plays tricks on you, and you believe what you think to be real when it's not. So dun nag-start lahat, and I started exploring more about emotional intelligence and your attachment styles and all of that. So yeah, and then everything I learned, I would just share with my sister, and then we apply it.
And then Danah, was it easy for you to accept this? Or was there a moment that you were like, I don't need improvement?
Oh no, I was all in. Parang andun din ako sa point na, oh my gosh, I'm so sick of this low emotional parang quotient and how it's been dragging me in patterns and cycles. So when my sister was telling me na, oy, I learned about this and that, parang andun din ako sa point na, hey, I want to be a better adult.
If you guys are willing to share, what was the hardest thing you guys had to go through as sisters, and how were you able to overcome it?
Wow. I think the most difficult one is the separation. We had a falling out. That's like 2 years coming, she moved out. I stayed here in the unit, in the condo, and then talagang we weren't talking for a good matagal. We were as in parang it was a time to really think about where our sisterhood has led us and where our codependency has taken us. It also had to be revealed to me that my twinhood is also now an idol. It was my foundation. It was what gave me joy. Working with my sister was the very root of my identity. Parang nung na-reveal din sa akin how detrimental it was for me as an individual, I also had to learn to surrender and make peace with the idea that, okay, I am now my own person and this is not going to be the end of me. When I started finally to make my relationship with God right, I was able to reconcile with my sister and admit my mistakes too. Alam mo yun, parang it just went full circle too. And now we couldn't be happier, right, Tiki Boo?
Yes.
Was that a mutual decision to be like, alis na tayo, or was Stacy was like, iwanan na kita?
Both.
Latter.
Both.
Both na lang nung after the latter.
Parang Stacy decided to leave and Danah was like, yeah, fine, go. I don't need you.
Yeah. And then after that, it's like, what am I gonna do?
How long were you guys apart? 2 years, diba? 2 years kayong...
Yeah, 2 years.
Who took the first step for the reconciliation to happen?
Ako. Pero ako kaya, pero it was a very long, long, long journey.
Super.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's no one time parang, oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. Okay, I forgive you. Walang ganon. Parang it was
Yeah.
really,
It was a progress.
oo, matagal.
Yeah.
Wow.
Took a lot of humility and openness and trust to get back to where we are now. Kasi, or then, it's not even getting back to where we were before because this is so much better now. Siguro, we just had to be real open about our hurts, and once we let that out and laid our cards down, parang mas nagkaroon talaga ng clarity, and then all the dark clouds were just like, gone. Yeah.
Well, you guys, I'm glad you're friends again, and that you love each other again, and that you have found yourself here. If there's somebody there who you feel is listening and that relationship is broken, how what do you want to say to that person? Like, what if they don't even want to fix it?
Right.
What would you say to that person?
Me siguro I'd say that, no feeling is final. This is my mantra lately, and it's really been helpful to me every time parang I feel like my emotion is about to get the best of me. Ayun no feeling is final. Just it's good to remember that na whatever you may be feeling now, parang give yourself a few hours, a few days, a few weeks if you have to, because it will pass and you don't want to make any stupid decisions that you're gonna regret later on.
Ako naman siguro, it would be don't waste your sisterhood for something that can be restored and repaired. I think once we really take accountability for the things we've done wrong, and once we lower our pride, miracles can happen. Parang sometimes we just become so egotistical about our approach on forgiveness and restoration, when in reality it doesn't even matter who goes first or who confesses first. Alam mo yun, parang to me sayang, because sisterhood is such a beautiful gift, and if this gracious and loving God who created the universe is willing to meet us eye to eye, parang why can't we do the same, especially to someone who's family?
Do you think people who don't have any kind of relationship with their siblings, just normal average people who just don't have a relationship with their other siblings, do you think they'd
Like
be
they're missing
better
out?
off? Yeah. Or is
Oh
it
yeah, for sure. Like I always try to different whenever I say there's a difference between a friend and a sister. Like for example, like you're my sister and we have a very specific relationship. No matter how close I get to any of my friends, sisterhood is different. Like siblinghood is different. So I feel like it's a very important relationship. It's unfortunate that some people, like I know some people who they just really have horrible siblings. Like maybe they're just really not good people, and that's unfortunate. You don't need to force yourself to have a relationship with them because, like you're not required to, but at the same time, I definitely feel like they're missing out on something. And you did, and like especially like moving here, like the parents moved mountains to help me get here, so parang yun din yung realization ko na parang kahit anong mangyari or kahit anong nangyari in the past, my family is my one constant.
Aww.
I mean, you have to
It's
let
true.
go of your stuff in the past, diba? I mean, if you're
No matter the level of closeness, it can't be denied that sisterhood is a special kind of relationship. It's more than your closest friendship, it's intimate and instinctive. It's a relationship that's familiar and comforting, like a hot bowl of soup on a rainy day. Sisterhood, for the most part, is worth keeping, repairing, and nourishing with love and time. This has been You're Just Okay, and That's Okay. Thank you so much for joining me on this sentimental journey into sisterhood. I hope you guys had a great time with me today, and if you liked what you heard, do tell your friends and family about the podcast. Talk to you again next time, guys. Bye!